Welcome to the Funnel Reboot Podcast with your host, Glenn Schmeltzley. Let's get into today's show.
Hey, Glenn here. Welcome to Funnel Reboot. Today's show is a refresher on business development that can apply to us whether we have sales in our job title or not. First, quick reminder that we're available on many platforms: Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Castro, Podcast Addict, Overcast, Radio Public, Radio.com, Amazon Music, Spotify, and it goes on and on. So if you haven't already subscribed on one of your favorite pod players, please go ahead, open it up, look up our show, and do so. If you want to learn about sales and you start Googling it, you quickly run across self-professed gurus who claim to know the secret to selling. If you faithfully follow this method, available today only for a low price, despite feeling a twinge of skepticism about this pitch, you're so deep by now into this slick, pressure-filled pitch. At this point, you pay for the books and the courses, and they end up being disappointing. Today's guest says these gurus have put you into the vortex of crazy. He doesn't try to apply the same advice to everyone. His response reminds me of what an ancient Buddhist guru said. Well, according to a novel that was written about a century ago by Hermann Hesse. The book talks about a few men being on a spiritual pilgrimage, and they reach a stage where their leader, Siddhartha, tells his followers that he must continue on alone. His right-hand man, Govinda, asks him why. Quote, Siddhartha spoke quietly, saying, "Always, O Govinda, you've been my friend. You've always walked one step behind me. Often I have thought, won't Govinda for once also take a step by himself without me? Behold, now you are choosing your path for yourself." Unquote. Our guest says there's only one sales method that works. It's the one that comes naturally to you. And that kind of refreshing take ripples all through his 2023 book, Do It Selling. Our guest has been working since 1992 to help customers land better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees. From Fortune 500 corporations to sole practitioners, his firm has helped over 1,800 clients. He is also the host of the highly rated podcast, The Selling Show. In his personal life, he's married to the number one most amazing woman on the planet. His words, not mine. He's launched 2 great kids into the world disguised as small adults. He's enjoyed raising some of the world's sweetest retrievers. Let's go talk to David Newman. David Newman, welcome to the show, David.
Hey, Glenn, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Would you please tell us what the name of your latest book is?
My latest book is called Do It Selling, and the subtitle, I think, might be a little bit more apropos: 77 Instant Action Ideas to Land Better Clients, Bigger Deals, and Higher Fees.
Right. And you have a real penchant for the number 77. I know that you wrote a book prior to this called Do It Marketing, which also had 77 tips. So we have a fair bit to go through here because that's a big number, but we'll make it easy for our listeners by just boiling down to, some of the things that really matter for a person. In fact, matter for a person who doesn't even have a sales title, right?
Oh, yes, for sure. Well, it's funny. There are sales professionals, there are non-sales professionals, and then there are professionals who just have to sell. So right. No matter where you are on that spectrum, there's always some fear, hesitation, doubt, even among professional salespeople. I think there was a survey, Selling Power Magazine years and years ago did a survey among professional full-time salespeople. And they said, how much time do you actually spend on sales activity in a 40-hour week? The answer was less than 8 hours. Yeah. Less than 20% of a professional full-time salesperson's time is actually spent on direct to prospect or direct to customer sales activity, sales conversations, which is astounding. And I think it's because there's a lot of sales craziness out there.
Yeah. But I will, before we get to that, just remark that it's heartening to know that, because for those of us who either are thrust into having to sell, or we work in marketing, or another, as you said, professional function where we got to help out because everybody's paycheck is on the line for sales, there's something good to say that, all right, I don't have to spend 80 hours a week. I can just give this a little bit of time, because if there are people who have sales printed on their business cards and do it, and they don't spend, their entire week or crazy amounts of time doing it, it is achievable for a mere mortal.
Yes, absolutely right.
So the craziness that you're talking about, let's go there. The point that you make right off the hop is that many of us make sales harder than it needs to be.
Oh, yes.
And I guess the dragon that you're slaying there is, and I was victim to it, was thinking that I got to master one of these methodologies out there. I've got to figure out the hack. I've got to get the right, lingo and neuro-linguistic programming and, filling out my green sheet with the ticks and the bops and the, what do they call them? Playbooks and game plans. And, it feels like I'm trying out for a sports team instead of just getting down to business. What you call the sales methods, you just call it a vortex of crazy.
Yes.
Tell us more.
Yes. Well, so I think there's two things going on. Number one, we absolutely do overthink, overdo. In the book, I think I talk about overanalyze and overparalyze. We overanalyze our sales role and we overparalyze ourselves with all of this nonsense. When you take everything off the table, Glenn, and you really look at what is sales, whether you're a full-time salesperson, a professional who sells, or a professional who hates to sell, I break it down as an invitation to a conversation about how you might be able to help that particular client or that particular company. Now, I want to break down both parts of that because neither part of this should be scary. Invitation. Generally, we like invitations. Invitations are fun. Invitations, you're invited to a party, and there's usually like cake or bourbon or puppies or something good at the other end of that invitation. So not a lot of people are hesitant to either make an invitation or to accept one.
Right.
Invitation to a conversation. Let's talk about what a conversation is. A conversation should also be something to look forward to. That's where we learn about other people. That's where we get to connect. That's how we build relationships. That's how we possibly make a new friend. That's how we possibly make a new business friend or personal friend or lifelong friend. So nobody should be afraid of conversations. No. If we literally throw the words sales and selling out the window and we replace it with 4 new words, which is send invitations and spark conversations, I think a lot more people would be a lot more excited about their sales function, and they'd be a lot better at it too.
Let's hope. The last couple of years, so we're recording this in early 2023, and the way in which people send out the invitations and spark those conversations has had to change for reasons that are clear to all of us. The issue, though, is that I think people, when they're sitting in front of the array of social media platforms and SMS and email and phone and all of these different methods for getting there, they, to use your word paralyzed, they do feel like they don't know which one of those to go with. And what I like about the simple invitation to a conversation is each of us will gravitate to, like in our personal life, if we want to do that, we want to have friends over for a party, we'll gravitate to the digital method that we're most comfortable with. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what you're saying about which sales method is the right one. Well, if you figure out about yourself what you like to do to get that and which one you feel genuine with, there's your answer. That's the right one. It's the right one for you.
Yes. And, I think everyone, if you look at it macro level, everyone's going to have the same macro level process. So it starts with initial contact. There is nothing, Glenn, that has ever been bought or sold other than a pack of gum.
Right.
But no major purchase has been made by any company, by any executive, without some sort of initial conversation. So people say, oh, so this is all about cold calling, right? Make 100 cold calls a day, spam the universe, spam my LinkedIn network, invite a whole bunch of people and then invite and spam. I'm saying no, because that's not how you would invite people to a party at your house.
Right.
You want to curate the guest list. You want to make sure that it's the right people at the right time for the right reason that you're inviting to this particular party. So this is all about being incredibly intentional and incredibly specific about the exact right kind of client that you want to invite to a conversation. So think about it this way. The beauty of this is that we have insights into buyers because we are buyers ourselves. No matter how hardcore of a sales professional you are, when you take off that hat, you are a consumer, you are a buyer, you are also a prospect. So every prospect that has ever been approached for an initial conversation has 3 questions. This could be a cold email, this could be a LinkedIn message, this could be literally a cold call on the phone. The 3 questions they're asking is, why this, why me, and why now? So if we were having this conversation, you say, well, Glenn, so let's say that you call me up and you say, hey, David, by the way, I went to your website. I see you have this new book coming out in early 2023. I would love to invite you to the podcast. I see you have 2 previous books that you've written. Congratulations. And by the way, I love that blog post on your website that talks about how to make 2023 a big success. So what's this showing me? In the course of 4 sentences, Glenn, you've done your homework. Glenn, you know exactly who I am. Why me? Why this? Why now? You've answered all 3 of those questions. Am I willing to have a conversation? Now, of course, it's an honor to be on your show. It wasn't anything other than, gratitude. But it's like, even if you had something to sell me, and that was the initial approach, it's like, well, I'm going to talk to this guy. Because it's the right thing at the right time, in the right way, directed at the right person. And this is what's called intelligent prospecting. If you can simply do the research before the outreach, and that's one of the key principles in the Do It Selling book, is research before reach out. Right? Know who you're connecting with, know why you're connecting with them, know how they can benefit and why they can benefit from talking to you. That answers those 3 questions brilliantly. And prospects will want to talk to people who answer those 3 questions right out of the gate. Why me? Why this? Why now? The alternate universe is when I get a random cold email going, hey, David, I see you work over there at Do It Marketing. I would love to tell you about our telecommunications solutions for all of your phone needs. So number 1, they don't know that my company is virtual. Number 2, they don't know that we don't have a physical office nor a phone system. Number 3, they're also unaware that this is my phone system right here. Right. It's my iPhone that I carry with me all the time. So those 3 questions, why this, why me, why now, fail.
Yep, and off you go. It's true. If we can narrow it down to business for a second.
Sure.
A few things I think in what you just said, bear a little bit more elaboration. So you, in the example you gave, talked about, mention of a blog post. There's some content. There's something that is meant to help. So I imagine this goes doubly so in B2B, where the person that you're reaching has a job. And yeah, part of their job is to buy stuff, but where they are, they're expected to make their company better. They need to develop whatever area of their company they work in. And maybe at a personal level, there are bonuses or promotions or reasons for them to want to get ahead. So you, in the book, also make clear that as you're doing this research, think for a minute about their psyche. Think about them as a person. Don't just go by, a list of people. Oh, they've got this buzzword in their title. Like, think about it, about where they are at, to try and, when you are doing your outreach, make it clear to them that you get them. Now, hopefully they'll get you, but you start by saying, well, I get you. And maybe in that content that you're offering them, package it in a way that helps them see that it could be something that gets them ahead, because nobody's going to say no to that.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So one of the most powerful questions, we'll talk about the middle of the initial conversation. I don't want to talk about the beginning, because the beginning is even more important, but somewhere early in the middle of any initial prospecting conversation, you want to find out what's in this for them personally, professionally, and financially. And people sometimes say, well, David, it sounds like I'm delving. It sounds like I'm nosy. It sounds like a very tricky question. It's not really a tricky question at all, because you can literally ask the question the way that I just asked it. So let's say that we're 20 minutes into a conversation. Some need, some problem has arisen. And I would say, well, Glenn, I'm curious. Solving this problem, what is in this for you personally? What is in this for you professionally? And does this impact you in any way financially? It's like, oh my God, my bonus is tied to this. Yes, our CEO said that if we don't fix this, he might have to lay off half of our group. Right. I'm really looking forward to getting this done so I can get my next bonus or whatever. It could be a positive, it could be a negative, or it could be, you know what? This doesn't affect me personally in any way, shape, or form.
And you want to know that too.
Either way, wouldn't you want to know whether the person has a personal, professional, or financial stake in solving that problem or getting that outcome? The best way to do that is during that conversation, ask.
Yeah. And what I took away from you explaining how, to get to that conversation, you need to send content, narrowing it down to three things: personal, professional, and financial. You can even very subtly, begin down one of those paths, even if it's a little bit of a guess, because you want to find something that they're interested in. To take the opposite, you said, to the person who says, yeah, I have no stake in this. As a matter of fact, this is just a chronic, it's a minor annoyance at our company. We've had it for years and nobody's done anything about it. I'm the fifth person in this very role who hasn't done anything about it. So, well, I don't know about you, but if I'm hearing that and I have a, transformative service or product to sell them, I'm just going to fold up and say, thank you. I need to move on, because it's not going to be me. I'm not a missionary. I'm here to try to get to a transaction. Maybe the next person will find them and bring them to the point where they say, yeah, I have to solve this. But, we need to
I think this is part of the sales dilemma, is that we don't disqualify early enough. In the sales world, there's this cliche called happy ears. And we tend to listen to prospects with happy ears. Oh, they have this problem. Oh, he's the fifth guy that tried to solve it. So maybe this is where he wants to put the feather in his cap that, hey, boss, I'm finally going to solve it. Listen, if this problem has been around for years and this is the fifth guy that's trying to solve it, sort of, but he says it's a minor annoyance, think about the disqualifiers. Disqualifiers is no need, no budget, no urgency, no authority. Right. He's saying, I don't have any four of those things. This is not important. We don't need it. We don't want it. And I'm not going to spend any money on it. But I'm interested in what you have to say. So he'll kill half an hour learning from a salesperson.
Right.
I mean, most executives, here's another fun fact. This was another survey that was done by some big sales organization. They talked to buyers, executive buyers, and they said, what are the reasons that you are willing to take a sales call with someone who approaches you? The number one reason was to learn something new that I don't already know. Number two, number three, number four reasons behind this: find out what my competitors might be doing that I'm not doing. Number three, find out about some industry trends or some things that might be hiding around the corner that we're not aware of yet. And number four is just to educate myself on what the landscape looks like so that in the future, if I have a need like this, I've got someone in my Rolodex that I can call. So they're really after insight. They're not after information. They're after insight. They're after recommendation. They're after trends. They're after market forces. They're trying to find out some critical information that's going to help them be bulletproof and help them get some sort of advantage over their competition. And then the second piece of the same research study is, when do you disengage with a salesperson? When do you disappear and go dark?
Yeah.
And the massive number one answer by a mile was, we stop talking to salespeople when we stop learning new information. And when it's just like, hey, just following up, hey, just circling back, hey, just wanted to check in, that is value-free follow-up. So the magic to keep a sales process.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So to get a sales process started, it's about education and insight. And to keep a sales process going, every touch point should be adding insight or value or new information that prospect can really use with a sense of immediacy.
Yeah, and I love that you break it into those four types of conversations. If it's anything other than those, like that person who just wants the happy years, I have an aging, lonely aunt that, I can put them in touch with.
Right.
Her reputation is such that she can even keep a person who dialed the wrong number on the line for half an hour.
Nice.
So we can save that for there. When we're coming down to creating this content, though, and I really have to hit this because you don't mince words. It takes time to write that content, right, David? And it also means that if we're going to do this kind of research that you're talking about, where we're understanding not only the target account, but we're understanding the various roles inside of it, even down to the individuals that we're contacting, it's going to leave us, because of the time that takes, with a much smaller group that we can end up contacting. And, David, if I were to just devil's advocate that, I'd have to say, but we're not reaching so many. And how are we going to possibly make our numbers if we only touch such a small number of people?
So two things about that. Great questions. Number one, we're really talking about B2B professional services sales. So if you're selling pencils, this is not for you. If you're selling B2C, this is not for you. If you're trying to get your new cheese product into the grocery stores, this is not for you. So we're talking about selling technology services. We're talking about accounting, engineering, finance, consulting, legal services. We're talking about really thought leadership type of sales. So because these deals are usually 5-figure, 6-figure, multi-6-figure deals, we don't need to have 100 prospects that we're talking to. So there's a formula that I put in the Do It Selling book, which sounds like the combination of my high school locker, but it's actually not the combination of my high school locker. It is 25, 10, 4, 1. Right. I will repeat those for you. 25, 10, 4, 1. What does that mean? That means that 25 outreaches, usually in our line of work that we're talking about here, the B2B professional services sale, 25 outreaches leads to 10 responses. Response could be go away, drop dead. Response could be we're not looking to change vendors, whatever it might be. So 10 responses of some kind. Out of that, 4 conversations with people who might be anywhere from a little bit to very interested. Out of those 4 conversations, 1 sale. So you lose 3, you get 1, there's 1 sale. Literally 25, 10, 4, 1. So when you put 25 in at the top, you should get 1 out at the bottom. Mm-hmm. If that 1 is worth $25,000, $100,000, $75,000, right? Most professional services sellers would be thrilled to land a $75,000 engineering contract or a $100,000 custom software contract. So we're not talking about large numbers. We're talking about talking to the right people at the right time with the right language. And all you have to do is about 15, 20 minutes of research. So when people say, oh, I got to research my prospect, this is going to take hours. Each one, you're going to the website, you're going to their media page, you're going to the press releases, you're looking for interviews in local, regional, and national media. You're looking for quotes by the CEO, the CFO, the VP of sales, the VP of marketing, the VP of R&D, whoever it is. Yeah. You're getting a sense of what's going on at the company by doing a Google News search. You're looking on YouTube. You're seeing where these people are being featured or showcased in the media, and you're just doing an overall scan. 15 minutes, literally, Glenn, 15 minutes of doing this puts you in a category of 1. Because every other salesperson is going to be lazy. Every other salesperson is not going to do this 15 minutes of research, and they're going to come across like a totally irrelevant salesperson who has no value, and they will not even get to that initial invitation, much less that initial conversation, because they're coming across like a goofy spammer and not like a trusted advisor who's done their homework.
So true. And the work that it takes for those 25, let's remember in a B2B company, you probably have a bit of a team. So maybe inside of sales, you have the account exec, but maybe you have a sales development rep, or a lot of teams are now fortunate to have marketing ops as part of this. So we have a group here that can work, and you can either use that to go deeper into the 25 or to make it a multiple of that number. But the math will still hold. When you've done the right research, you can get those kind of results within the sales cycle that your company normally sells in.
Right.
So you have to have the staying power for that. But I very much believe that these two, this method, it makes sense to the person who's worked their whole life in marketing. It makes sense to the, let's say, leader of the company who has to also sell. This is an intuitive process. This doesn't take learning like a salesperson does, who has to go off and get indoctrinated in a methodology. This is a really simple, like, you put the book down and you open up a spreadsheet and you start putting in columns and listing the data that you need to begin this process.
Right. Absolutely. Glenn, is it okay if I share just what that first contact call might look like? Because I know that's the part that scares a whole lot of people. Like, okay, I've got the research. I have an angle. I think I know what's going on. Now I have to reach out. Now I have to have a Zoom to Zoom or voice to voice conversation. Would it help to break that down for people?
We'll do it, but we're going to first take a quick pause. Breaking away for a sec to ask, do you have a lot of company data in reach, but struggle to get useful business insights out of it? Do you open up your Google Analytics, but find you're at a loss on how to get it reporting the way you want? Do you wonder what new marketing strategies you could leverage if you could just unlock what's in your data? If you said yes, then you sound just like other clients did when they started working with me. Many B2B companies who I've done project work with have been helped by modernizing their analytics. Some deploy dashboards, some activate their data using machine learning in their campaigns. As of this recording in fall of 2023, my schedule is opened up enough to accommodate 1 or 2 projects. Should you be ready to begin a project, let's talk about what you would like your analytics to do for you. please reach out today via the podcast feedback channels or connect with me, Hey Glenn S., 2 N's on Glenn, on either Twitter or Instagram. Or search up Marketing Analytics People on LinkedIn. I'm usually the first Glenn that pops up. Okay, let's get back to the show. Okay, no more suspense, David. Why don't you lay on us what that initial contact should be and how a person who doesn't do sales for a living can possibly break through and make a good first conversation happen?
I am so glad that we did that as the station break cliffhanger. Very exciting. So folks, welcome back. I'm so glad that you came back. So there are a couple of parts to this, each of which are very easy. I always like to ask a great opening question. So the great opening question that is in the Do It Selling book is, tell me a little bit about what you've done to get to where you are today. Give me a quick sketch of your professional journey or your situation with this particular problem, and then we'll spend the rest of our time talking about where you'd like to go next. So Glenn, let's unpack that question. What does that do? That gets prospects talking. So ancient Chinese wisdom, a prospect who is listening is not a prospect. Think about that.
Right.
Like, ooh, what does that mean? That means a prospect who is talking is a prospect. So you simply open up the doorway and say, tell me about where you've been, what you're working on. Give me the history of this situation that brought us to this call today. And then we'll talk about where you'd like to go next. This is 5 to 7 minutes of really important information. It gives them a chance to vent. It gives them a chance to give you any relevant backstory, any relevant facts of what they've done, why this is important, why this is something that they're looking to solve right now. Once they're done with that 5 to 7 minute monologue, and it is a monologue, which they love because people love talking about themselves. Right. They love talking about their problems. They love talking about their company, their team, everything. So now they're warmed up. Your next question coming out of your mouth is, well, Glenn, thank you for sharing all of that. By the way, do you mind for the duration of our call today, may I treat you like a fee-paid client? They go, okay. Ooh, treat you like a fee-paid client. So some will say yes right away. Some will say, well, David, sure, but what does that mean? And here is your answer. That means I'm going to give you some specific advice. I may interrupt and redirect our conversation to maximize the value of our time together. And finally, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. Do I have your permission to do that? And they almost always say, oh, yes, that would be great. And now think about what you've done. You've established that you are leading the sales conversation. You have asked and gotten permission to interrupt and redirect in case they go off the rails or in case they go into storytelling mode that's not productive to what you want to ask them.
Yep.
And you've also given them a little bit of tough love that I may tell you what you need to hear and not necessarily what you want to hear. Would that be okay? This is truly a consultative sales process because you are listening and probing and diagnosing as they're talking, and they're telling you what's important. They're telling you what's missing, funky, broken, and sad. They're telling you what they're proud of. They're telling you what's working. They're telling you what's not working, and you maintain the reins of the call. During the rest of the call, you are doing your best, your absolute best, to serve them, help them, and give them some new insight that they didn't have before talking to you. The fourth part of this is what I call the test drive question. And the test drive question simply validates or qualifies them. Are they serious about moving forward, or were they just kicking the tires to get some help? So the way that the test drive question sounds is this. Hey, Glenn, before we wrap up, I've got one more question for you, and then I'm happy to answer any of your final questions. In my experience, two kinds of folks want to have this initial conversation with me.
Right.
The first kind just wants the advice, the insights, the guidance, and truly that's all they're after at this time. The second group are folks who, of course, they also want the free advice and the free insights, but they're also in test drive mode, meaning that they're test driving what a working relationship with me or with us might feel like. I'm curious, which camp do you find yourself in? And you would be amazed that people will openly tell you, oh no, we're shopping around. We're in test drive mode. I saw your LinkedIn. I went to your website. This is something that we need to fix. That's why I called. So think about this. People are not calling because they're bored. People are not booking calls with you because there's nothing good on Netflix.
Right. They have enough
They want help. And these executives and entrepreneurs that you're reaching out to, when they give you 30 or 45 minutes of their time, many of them have a serious intent to buy. So once you've established that, then I would set up the next conversation, because the mantra is never leave one call without setting up the next call with a date and time in their calendar, so that you move like a chain link fence from one step of the sales process to the next.
Okay.
In the second part of the sales process, that's where you get to do a little bit more diagnosis and perhaps a broad level of prescription of, well, here's 2 or 3 ways that we might be able to help you.
So before we get to the second part, I want to make clear I heard you on the first part, where even if they say, yeah, no, we're in play, we are looking to make a decision, you're saying we actually should hit the brakes before launching into sales. This call was for something else. This is not.
Yes.
And you had said that. You said, here's what I like to do in these kind of calls. Do I have your permission to go? And I didn't hear you say in there, can I pelt you with a demo? Can I show you our pricing? You didn't say that. So
this is truly a
we have
job.
to honor that, right?
Yeah,
we talk
no,
about
totally.
the things you mentioned, but we're not going to deviate. Even if they want, we're going to leave them wanting that for the next time. Okay.
Yes.
Got it. There's another part here, and I'm sure some of the people listening who maybe aren't the founder of a company, so, they didn't decide to jump, both feet and both arms into fixing this problem that clients have. Let's say this is a person, they work in that company, they, may be involved in the wings, helping to identify prospects, and they find themselves in this conversation. But they're wondering, well, who am I to tell that business executive or, another founder entrepreneur who really knows how to run a business? Who am I to tell them insights about their industry? I'm just me. I mean, what do I know? How can we approach that and kind of get rid of the inner, unworthy part of ourself that is speaking that?
Sure. So I would say that there are salespeople and there are sales professionals. And every salesperson is a sales professional in the making. A sales professional understands, no matter what level, no matter what job title is on their business card, that they know more about their product and service and their client base and their client successes and how to solve this problem using the products or services of this company. They should know more about that than the prospect. So the prospect, of course, they have a problem. They may be intimately familiar with their problem, but you need to show up owning your expertise around your solution. And one of the best ways to own the expertise around your solution is not to talk about your solution, but to diagnose the problem with them on a deeper level than they would think to do so themselves. So there's a great book called The Challenger Sale. I'm sure you're familiar. I'm sure our listeners are also familiar that is the difference between a salesperson and a sales professional. A sales professional is going to challenge the thinking of the prospect, is going to challenge the premise that they're coming into the sales conversation with, and it's going to shed new light and new angles and new facets of this problem and the possible outcomes and solutions that the prospect could not and would not think of on their own. So think about it this way. Low-level people, they want their questions answered. High-level people, they want their answers questioned. And so that's where this challenger sale methodology comes into play. But we need to own our expertise, no matter what the job title is on your business card. And remember, expertise is really judged way more on the questions that you ask than on the statements that you make.
Right. So we don't break that earlier thing about you're not doing most of the talking, but the few times that you are talking, it has the level of, let's say, a doctor talking to their patient. Where it's just the question that will let the patient go, oh, yes, there is a connection there. I do realize that now. I suppose one other thing that I felt was coming out through the book was also remember, he kind of grabbed me by my shirt collar and shook me and said, remember, if you're working in an industry, you've devoted yourself, sure, it's a job title, but you're showing up each day and you are soaked in the problems of not one, but many different companies. So you look across them, you do see patterns, you must, and that objectivity is a very hard thing for any of us to have. So if we think about our prospect, yes, they're probably a smart person. Yes, they vaguely feel they have a problem, but they can't see it the way you see it. The phrase that I love about that is you can't tell what the label on a jar says when you're inside the jar.
Right.
And you as the salesperson, you can see that label because you've seen all those jars. You look at their competitors and people in other geographies that grapple with the same thing. You do that all day, or you're reading up on it. You're spending time writing content about it. So don't say that you don't know how this works. Just while we're on that, we could take a hard right turn for a moment to talk about pricing, because I think the same principle applies. Don't think that because you think a $10,000 offering is a big number, that it's a big number to your prospect. Get out of that mindset. You're going to end up censoring or probably shooting yourself in the foot if you are trying to put too much of yourself in. Just take out the pieces that would make sense to them.
Right.
And have the conversation based on value, just like you do, based on solutions around the things within the framework that they set.
Yeah, totally spot on. And so there's a section of the book that talks about this, that what's a lot of money to you might not be a lot of money to your prospects. And I just had a client conversation with this where they're putting together a $120,000 consulting proposal. And my client was having a little bit of sticker shock and nervousness. And I don't know, that seems like a lot. This was for a Fortune 500 company. The insight that I shared with her, I said, listen, they spend $120,000 on pencils.
Yeah.
A company like this literally spends $120,000 on pencils. Are you solving bigger than a pencil problem? She goes, oh, yes, very much so. I said, great. Then it's $120K minimum, and you should probably have a second and a third option for $150 and $180.
Yeah. And that if they ask you, as we're on that, what the, if the price can be changed, you say, in fact, to go, oh, yeah, we can absolutely change it. What I'm going to do is understand the broader scope of what you need, but be clear on this. What I'm going to come back to you with are options to solve even bigger parts of your problem, and those are going to have higher price points.
Yes. So this is the part about the whole sales negotiating, and everyone listening, most people listening, when you think that a client wants to negotiate with you, our immediate assumption is they want to negotiate down. And I'm thinking we should negotiate up. So when someone says, well, David, is that your final price or can we negotiate? My answer is, Glenn, we can negotiate. Sure. How much more would you like to invest?
Right. And how much more of your problem?
Oh, you mean that's the minimum number? Like, of course that's the minimum number. Like, how much more, how much further do you want to go? We can go further. We can go faster. We can go deeper, but it's going to be even more expensive.
I very much like that. I think, it also, you be careful of this trap where if you think that that's an invitation by them to reduce the price and you fall for it, what you've kind of announced to them is whatever you were trimming was fat.
Yes.
I worked with a boss, and we got a proposal in for a large office purchase, and he simply went back to the sales rep and said, "Is that your best and final offer?" And instead of the sales rep saying yes, or like you would say, "Well, it isn't final if you want me to add some more stuff and raise the price," he actually came back, and just for saying that, it chopped 10% off the price. And, I was happy to be watching this and the company not spending as much. And I'll tell you, though, that boss was pretty angry. I mean, we did end up taking it, but he was like, if I hadn't have said that, he'd have taken us for that extra 10%. So I think we're probably in a new realm of sales where there is more sophistication around it, but we must watch ourselves. We have to stop bringing in our preconceived notions around dollar and value and this is a lot. Like, as you say in the book, what is a car worth? How much is a house worth? Well, you can add zeros and keep going. There's no tight range to it. It's as much as you're as little as you want. So you got to remember that when we are using that and you swap out the word car and you say accounting package sale or management consulting engagement, what it actually has, there's no predetermined number on what it has. That's up to you.
Well, I also want to go back, actually, just two things about this scenario. Number one, there's a huge difference between caving on price and negotiating where you're reducing the fee and reducing the value.
Right.
So it's always flexible. You can always raise the fee by adding value, lower the fee by removing value. But caving on price for no reason, that example that you just gave, Glenn, really bad idea. Sends all kinds of bad messages. The second thing is I love the way you phrase the question, is that your best price? Because to me, best price means the highest price, right? Is that your best price? Like, no, other clients have bought a lot more and they paid 3 times this. That's my best price. You are getting my worst price. So do you want the best price or do you want the worst price? And we can keep it where it is, or we can add a lot more value and solve a lot more problems. So literally best price in our training, we talk about proposals should be good, better, best. Good, better, best. So literally the word best means, is that the highest price? I'm like, no, we can make it higher.
So true. So let's wrap with just a little bit about how this process happens when we're working virtually and when most buying now happens by committee. You had said earlier in the outreach phase, we should be reaching, a group of people within the company. If we know that there are always the, people with a CFO title and a COO title, or, one or two of those, maybe the CEO is also at the table, we should absolutely be reaching out to them. And we will stay in touch until we reach the part where final pricing and final scoping is determined. What advice do you give about how we're supposed to understand and use those different players together? And how do we figure out if one of them is going to be a roadblock? How do we tease out in our conversation that if we don't do something else, this actually is not going to culminate in a sale?
Right. So this is what I call the drama, literally drama. So I'll have a client jump on a call with me. They say, David, I'm working on a deal. It's kind of a committee sale, but I got to tell you, there's Jim, there's Fred, there's Barbara, and there's Jen. And I'm like, hold on, wait a second. Did you just give me a cast of characters? She goes, yeah. I said, you know what happens ordinarily when you open up a program and you see a cast of characters? You're about to see a drama. You're about to see a drama right there. So as soon as they have names, I know we're in trouble. I said, okay, who's your ultimate economic decision maker? Who is the person with the ultimate authority? And did they bring these other people in to support the decision? Are they different types of stakeholders? Give me an idea of the inter-team dynamics. Well, I'm talking to the CEO, but she also needs the permission of the CFO and the COO, and then we have this other meeting set up. So I'm like, great. Step number one is to go back to your ultimate decision maker and ask them, with this cast of characters, what are we likely to run into? What are they going to like? What are they not going to like? Where are we going to hit some obstacles? Where might we step on some toes? What are people going to be sensitive about given their different areas of responsibility? Are there any landmines that I should know about? So one of the great questions that you can always ask is, you guys live there. Is there anything that you need, that you think I should know that I couldn't possibly know because I'm an outsider and you guys have all the inside knowledge? For example, well, yes, you should know that our COO, their feelings are hurt right now because we cut about 1/3 of their operations departments. Ooh, okay. The other thing you should know is our CFO is about to retire in 6 months and really doesn't give a hoot about this project in any way, shape, or form. When you ask, is there anything I need to know that I couldn't possibly know about the players that are involved here? You will get all kinds of information. What will they like? What will they fear? What will they resist? What will they resonate with? How can we overcome some of those obstacles? And if it was just you and me, how would we each individually talk to each of these players around the table? And they will give you all the intelligence you need, because the presumption is that your ultimate economic buyer, they want to go ahead with you. They just need everyone else's buy-in also.
Okay, so 2 quick things on that. Number one, when you, in this situation you were related, when you were on the phone with your person, for them to even answer the questions you asked, they had to know to ask their main economic decision maker. So I guess The first part is, be ready in one of the conversations that you have with that person to get pushy and find out these other pieces. And the other one, I got to make sure I heard you right, is that I can assume that economic decision maker will share with me perhaps the unsavory or less than flattering things that are going on in their company. I shouldn't be, worried that they'll clam up because they don't want to throw colleagues under the bus. Am I right that they're going to tell me some things if I merely and in a non-colored way just ask the question where you said,
sure,
what else should we know? What else would you need to see from me? Who else should we try to help?
Yeah. Well, I think the dirty laundry question, if there is a dirty laundry question, is positioned in a very neutral piece of language, which is there anything that I should know that I couldn't possibly know? It could be good news. Right. It could be, oh my God, we all just got $500,000 bonuses, so we're all kind of punch drunk right now. I wouldn't assume that they will answer. I wouldn't assume that they won't answer, but I guarantee that you will get no answer if you don't ask.
All right. I'm thinking of that movie, A Few Good Men. I just rewatched it, and they were deliberating for the majority of the movie. Should they ask the colonel the question?
Right.
And you're saying yes. If they're on the stand, ask. You won't know until you ask.
That's it.
This has been wonderful, and as it relates to it, I think that you've tied up a rather nice set of things that are attainable for a person who doesn't sell for a living, but who can use what you've given to grow the revenue inside of their company and make this a pretty easygoing process to follow. If people want to find out many of the 77 things that we didn't chat about here, David, where would you send them?
Well, the Do It Selling book is available anywhere fine books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you get books. And there are some companion resources, tools, downloads, and training videos. If you go to doitmarketing.com/selling, you will see all of those downloads and companion tools. And then the last thing, Glenn, is we also have some free on-demand training which is at doitmarketing.com/webinar.
I really want to feel that people who listen to this and made it all the way to the end got some new insight on how to make their sales and marketing even better.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter at Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.